They had the power, the speed, the looks. Some even had the legacy, but they still failed. These aren't just fast cars, they're supercar legends that could have changed everything. If only the world had let them. Today, we're counting down 10 supercars and hypercars that failed, but absolutely shouldn't have. 1. Noble M600. Imagine a supercar with nearly 650 horsepower, twin turbos, a carbon fiber body, and absolutely no electronic safety nets, no ABS, no traction control, no stability assist. The Noble M600 was built to scare you, and it didn't care if you weren't ready. Launched in 2010, the M600 was a British-built analog missile in a digital age. It could hit 225 miles per hour and go toe-to-toe with Ferraris and Lamborghinis, yet it had the soul of a race car and the manners of a Bronco. But that raw, unfiltered experience came at a price. Buyers were too afraid to take the plunge. In an era where supercars were becoming more like luxury smartphones on wheels, the M600 was a dinosaur. Beautiful, powerful, and totally unfit for modern tastes. Fewer than 30 were ever sold. A tragic ending for one of the last truly analog supercars. 2. BMW M1. The birth of M, not a sales hit. Long before the M3 or M5, BMW's motorsport division created a supercar, the BMW M1. It was low, wide, mid-engined, and powered by a glorious 3.5-liter straight six. The M1 was BMW's bold attempt to take on Porsche and Ferrari, on the track and the street. But the story of the M1 is one of corporate chaos and bad timing. Designed by Giugiaro and developed with Lamborghini, yes, that Lamborghini, the project was plagued with delays. By the time the M1 was ready in 1978, the racing series it was built for had already changed the rules. BMW was stuck with a road-going supercar and no motorsport home. They tried to pivot by creating the Procar series, a one-make race series that saw Formula One drivers like Niki Lauda and Nelson Piquet behind the wheel. But even that wasn't enough to save it. Fewer than 460 were built, and BMW shelved the idea of a halo supercar for decades. Still, the M1 became the blueprint for every M car that followed. 3. Vector W8, America's Cyberpunk supercar. No car screams late 80s sci-fi excess quite like the Vector W8. With its fighter jet cockpit, aerospace materials, and angular bodywork, it looked like something RoboCop would drive to work. But this wasn't just a gimmick. Under the hood sat a twin turbocharged V8 capable of over 600 horsepower. Vector claimed it could reach 242 miles per hour. Whether that was marketing or madness is still up for debate, but what's certain is that the W8 was one of the most ambitious American supercars ever built. Sadly, ambition alone doesn't build a legacy. Build quality issues, production delays, and bizarre business decisions doomed the company. Only 17 W8s were ever delivered to customers. What could have been the American Ferrari ended up as a cautionary tale in the hypercar history books. 4. Jaguar XJ220, the supercar that lost its way. In 1988, Jaguar unveiled a prototype that made jaws drop, the XJ220. It promised a naturally aspirated V12, all-wheel drive, and spaceship styling. The car world went wild, and Jaguar took hundreds of deposits. But by the time it launched in 1992, something had changed. Everything, in fact. The production version had a twin-turbo V6 instead of a V12, rear-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive, and a price tag north of $500,000. It was still blazingly fast. At one point, the fastest production car in the world, hitting 212 miles per hour, but buyers felt betrayed. Lawsuits were filed, production numbers were slashed, and Jaguar quietly let the XJ220 fade into obscurity. Today, it's revered as a misunderstood masterpiece, but back then, it was seen as a bait-and-switch disaster. 5. Apollo Intensa Emozione. Some cars make a statement. The Apollo Intensa Emozione screams it, literally, with its name translating to intense emotion in Italian. This hypercar comes armed with a naturally aspirated 6.3-liter V12 that revs to 9,000 RPM and sounds like pure chaos. It looks like something designed by aliens, built by engineers who were told make it insane or don't bother. But the SCE wasn't just a design exercise, it was engineered to dominate the track. Built with a carbon fiber monocoque and weighing just over 2,700 pounds, the Apollo had the stats to compete with anything Ferrari or Lamborghini could throw at it. So why didn't it succeed? Timing and pricing. It cost $2.7 million and was limited to just 10 units. With that price tag and no racing pedigree, the IE became more of a collector's trophy than a performance icon. It deserved more, a racing campaign, more road cars, and a legacy. Instead, it remains one of the loudest what-ifs in supercar history. 6. Lexus LFA, a masterpiece that came at a cost. What happens when a car company forgets about profit margins and just builds the greatest car it possibly can? You get the Lexus LFA, a machine that defied every stereotype about Japanese engineering by being loud, emotional, and downright insane. Under the hood was a 4.8-liter V10 that revved to a stratospheric 9,000 RPM and screamed like a Formula One car from the golden era. It was so fast, Lexus had to ditch an analog tachometer. It couldn't keep up with how quickly the engine gained revs. Every inch of the LFA was over-engineered. A carbon fiber chassis built in-house, advanced materials everywhere, and obsessive tuning that spanned nearly a decade. But perfection comes at a price. Lexus lost money on every unit. It was priced at nearly $400,000, at a time when people still thought of Lexus as the brand your dentist drove. Sales were sluggish, and it took years to move the full 500-unit production run. Today, the LFA is a legend. Prices have more than doubled. It's widely regarded as one of the best sounding and most finely balanced supercars ever made. But back in 2010, the world just wasn't ready. 7. Ferrari F50. The Ferrari F40 is practically royalty among car enthusiasts. So when Ferrari followed it up with the F50, expectations were sky high and opinions were brutal. The looks, too weird. The sound, too raw. The drive, too much like a race car. But here's the thing, that's exactly what Ferrari was going for. The F50 took a 4.7-liter V12 derived from Ferrari's 1990 Formula One engine, bolted it to a carbon fiber tub, and mounted it directly to the chassis with no insulation. It was loud, stiff, and unforgiving because it wasn't meant to be comfortable. It was meant to be pure. In retrospect, that purity is what makes the F50 so special. It had no turbos, no traction control, no gimmicks, just you, the engine, and the road. Only 349 were made, and for years it sat in the shadow of the F40. Now, the F50 is finally getting its due. Collectors and purists alike have realized it's one of the last truly analog Ferrari hypercars. A raw, untamed beast that was misunderstood in its time but worshipped today. 8. Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR. You know a car is serious when it was literally built because racing rules required it to exist. That's the Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR, born for the FIA GT1 series in the late 90s. It wasn't a road car that went racing. It was a race car that barely passed for a road car. Underneath its carbon fiber shell was a 6.9-liter naturally aspirated V12 pumping out 600 plus horsepower. It could hit 60 in 3.8 seconds and had a top speed north of 210 miles per hour. Inside, no frills, just leather-lined intimidation and a racing harness. Only 26 road-going versions were ever built, 20 coupes and 6 roadsters. Each one cost over $1.5 million back then. Adjusted for today, you're looking at nearly $3 million, and that's if you could even find one. The CLK GTR wasn't about luxury, it was about flexing German engineering to the absolute limit. It was brutal, rare, and the definition of overkill, and that's exactly why we wish it had a second act. 9. TVR Cigaris, British chaos on wheels. The Cigaris wasn't just a car, it was a middle finger to the rulebook. Built by the ever-eccentric TVR, this wild British sports car ditched modern safety features like ABS, airbags, and traction control. Even its power steering was borderline optional. Its name, Cigaris, came from a Greek battle axe, and one look at the body told you everything you needed to know. With bulging fenders, side exit exhausts, and vents that looked like gills on a sea monster. It wasn't designed to be pretty, it was designed to scare scare supercars and turn every head at cars and coffee. Under the hood was a 4.0-liter inline six making 400 horsepower, sending every bit of it to the rear wheels with no safety net. It was light, twitchy, and dangerously fast. Just over 200 were ever made before TVR folded, another casualty of financial instability and underdog ambition. The Cigaris wasn't refined, but it was real. In a world of corporate polish and software patches, this was raw automotive passion, and we wish we got to see what the next chapter looked like. 10. Bugatti EB110, the supercar that nearly saved Bugatti. Before the Veyron rewrote the rules of speed and luxury, there was the EB110, a supercar so ahead of its time, it still feels futuristic today. Launched in 1991, it came armed with a quad turbocharged V12, a carbon fiber chassis, all-wheel drive, and active aerodynamics. It was like someone had time traveled from the 2020s to the early 90s and left this thing behind. With 553 horsepower in the base version and over 600 in the EB110SS, it could hit 60 in under 3.5 seconds and top out at over 210 miles per hour. That performance was insane back then. Heck, it's still impressive now, but timing is everything. Bugatti's rebirth under Italian entrepreneur Romano Artioli was a passion project with no financial safety net. By the mid-90s, the company collapsed under the weight of its own ambition, and the EB110 faded into obscurity. Only 139 were ever made. Still, the EB110 laid the foundation for everything Bugatti would become. Without it, there might be no Veyron, no Chiron, no modern Bugatti at all. It was the right car at the wrong time, and it deserves to be remembered as the supercar that nearly changed history. If you enjoyed the video, consider checking out the coolest cars you can get while on a budget. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more stories from the edge of automotive history.